Hi, gang. How are you? Hi, Kelly McCluskey, Nancy Teroyan, and Kate Kelly, and Corinne Kelly, and Thomas DuVernay, and Ann Sakura. Gary R. Smith, not to be confused with Gary B. Smith. Tammy Moran. Hello from Hatboro. Gang, question for you. I'm going to talk about Play Gun Lake Casino in a moment, but quick thumbs up or thumbs down. Would Donald Trump ever take Tim Scott as his running mate? Quick show of emojis. Yes or no? Would Trump take Tim Scott? Christopher Stile says no. That is the correct answer. Sean Nichols also says no. Others are extending greetings. Thomas DuVernay, no. Oh, Robert Goldstein, you say yes. Desiree Sunset, yes. Reds, no. Mary Coyle, no. Jamal, yes. Macaroni 11, nope. Dawn, yes. Cynthia Christie, no. Chuck Hall, no. Oscar Meza, Gail, Eric Swenson, no. I think the correct answer is a no vote. I'll tell you why in just a second. Big pro football weekend. Thank you to my friends at the Play Gun Lake Casino. Michigan going crazy. I'm excited about the Sunday games. Sunday, 3 p.m., Detroit hosting Tampa Bay. Detroit is back to a 6-point home favorite. Then you've got Sunday night, Buffalo, a 2.5-point favorite, hosting defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be a Seinfeld moment. That's going to be one of those rare moments where we're all watching the same thing. It'll be KC at Buffalo Sunday night. And then we'll go back to, our 500 different directions. The Play Gun Lake Casino and Sportsbook app has you covered. Play all your casino games right at your fingertips. I talk all about the sports betting, but you can just sit there and play blackjack during, the commercials if you want to. Odds and slots and bets and game right in your pocket. Fun stuff. New users, there's a bonus that you can take advantage of. It's got to be wagered, but you can download the Play Gun Lake app online and get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. Terms and conditions apply. Go to the website, playgunlake.com, get all the details. I just read in the New York Times that they think that the heavy favorites, Baltimore, minus 9.5, San Francisco, minus 9.5, are nevertheless good picks. I think that's a lot of points. That's a lot of points to cover, but what do I know? Got to be 21 and in Michigan. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline, 1-800-270-7117. So back to Tim Scott for just a moment. I was looking at Mark Halpern's reaction last night online to Scott being endorsing of Trump and then making a speech in New Hampshire. And I agree with one of his points. I don't believe that in this election, people who were not already voting for Trump because Tim Scott is endorsing Trump now say, oh, I'm for Donald Trump because Tim Scott is for Donald Trump. I don't think that endorsements matter for that purpose. I think it matters because of inevitability. Given that Tim Scott is from South Carolina, given that it was Nikki Haley who appointed Tim Scott to the United States Senate, first African-American to represent the Palmetto State in the United States Senate, I think it just reinforces this feeling of inevitability that it's going to be Donald Trump. And so for that reason, I think that the Scott endorsement was key. Now, let me go back to the first question that I asked you, which is, do I think that Donald Trump would select Tim Scott? And my answer is no. And it's funny because a lot of commentators are talking about how Tim Scott's endorsement speech of Trump in New Hampshire last night was a tryout for VP. Well, if it were a tryout for VP, he failed. And you know who else failed this week? Vivek. Just look at Trump's facial expression and body language standing behind Vivek or standing behind Tim Scott, especially when Scott became like a carnival bark. And I know that you're going to say this sounds petty, and come on, Michael, isn't it more important what their positions are and where they're from? And they stand. No, Trump reads people. And I think that Trump would have regarded Scott as buffoonish. In his remarks last night, Donald Trump, I don't know, it just looked odd. And Vivek went on too long. And when he went on too long standing next to Trump, and the audience seemed enthused, but you know who wasn't enthused? The audience of one, Donald Trump. Because I just read that scene and I thought, that's Trump thinking 2 minutes was enough. But when Vivek at 5 minutes, I don't know, maybe even 7 minutes was still going on, I think it eliminated him from consideration. As of this moment in time, if you said to me, who do you think is most likely as a Trump running mate if he wins the nomination, I would say Elise Stefanik. And that's not an original thought. I'm not the only one saying so, but I am here to tell you it's not going to be Vivek Ramaswamy, and it's not going to be Tim Scott, in my opinion. Mark the tape. What's today? The 20th of January. Wow, the 20th of January. Where will we be on the 20th of January next year? Whoa, think about that. Okay, so I made reference to how much time Vivek Ramaswamy spoke when he was endorsing Donald Trump. There's another time-related issue that I'm going to get into on CNN today. This is really interesting. I got to tell you guys a little sort of inside baseball because I so appreciate your being with me for these live YouTube moments. I wrote a commentary and I submitted it in draft form to Catherine, my producer. I sent it to her on Thursday night. This becomes significant. I sent it to her on Thursday night, and the gist of the commentary, which I'm going to deliver, it's been polished, and my team at CNN, including Catherine, have helped me greatly in adding elements. Amelia, thank you. Jorge, thank you. David, thank you. I'm trying to think if anybody else had a hand in it, but it was a group effort. Anyway, the gist of the commentary that I'm going to deliver on CNN today is exactly what the poll question asks. Are the people most opposed to Donald Trump actually aiding his election? And mine is a yes vote. Mine is a big yes vote. And at the top of the list in terms of me explaining what I'm talking about would be MSNBC not taking the Trump acceptance speech in Iowa on Monday night, which I find ridiculous. I find it to be ridiculous because you've dedicated the whole night to the Iowa caucus. You're going, coast to coast with coverage. You've got the panel. You've got Kornacki on the wall. You've got your big gun, for whom I have respect, Rachel Maddow. She's in the chair, and you're covering all of the returns. And then when it gets to the moment that Donald Trump has won, it's like, we're not taking that because he's going to lie to you, and you can't handle it. Like his lies are going to metastasize with the MSNBC audience. I don't think so. The MSNBC audience already isn't voting for him. And it sets, in my view, a just foolish precedent. So let's just think about this. MSNBC, you're going to have a super box in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention, I imagine. You're going to broadcast from the National Convention in July. You're going to send out all your big talent. You're going to cover, the machinations and the different speeches from the podium. And then wait a minute. Thursday night, Trump accepts the nomination. And what? You're going to dip out of it? Or, and by the way, these are just hypotheticals. I'm not saying he will be the nomination, although it looks likely. I'm not saying he's going to be elected. But let's just carry this through. So now he wins the presidency. And it is January 20 of 2025, right? It's a year from today. And you're not going to cover the inauguration? Because as George W. Bush said, sitting there for Trump's first inaugural in 2017, that was some dark shit. I imagine it will be. But how do you not cover it? And the point is, it's not as if MAGA was tuned in to MSNBC, waiting to hear what Rachel had to say. But they become aware of this. And on my network, CNN, and I was clicking around and watching everything, they took 10 minutes of it. And then they dipped out, but they did cover it. They didn't take all of it. And I'm out of the loop. I'm here in Philly. I'm here in Philly. I got stuff to do. I'm delivering a radio show. That's my real job. So I'm not in the loop. And I tell you about delivering my commentary to Catherine on Thursday night because I didn't know. But in the New York Times, at least the electronic version today, apparently within CNN, there's a debate about how much they should have taken of Trump. So I'm, probably an outlier in this at my own network. But I'm nothing if not consistent. I believed a year ago that it was right for CNN to have a town hall. I thought Caitlin Collins did a terrific job. I thought that the audience had been skewed toward Trump, and it made it more pep rally-ish than it should have been. I assume, nobody tells me anything, I assume that there was like a negotiation, in order to get Trump. I'll bet Trump wanted to control who was in the audience. But I thought CNN should have done it. And Caitlin did a fine job, and you ask sharp questions. And, to those who say, well, fact check in real time, it's impossible. Like people said to me on radio this week via social media, well, just have somebody checking everything they say in real time. There's no way you can do it. I trust the American people to see through bullshit. And I don't think that you have to throw a flag in every single instance. If there's something obvious that somebody says, you of course have got to push back on them. But I think it's okay to let the American people decide. And all of these efforts to cry foul on Trump, I think are helping him. And guess what? You know who else is of this mindset? Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase, the biggest banker in the United States, if not the world. Where was he? Davos on Squawk Box. I have a difficult time saying that. Squawk Box. On Squawk Box, he said, the Trump base is being disrespected. And you've got to say that in certain policy areas, and Jamie Dimon was very careful. I in a script that was written for me on CNN today, the word praised was written, and I changed it. He didn't praise Trump. But he said there are some things that Trump got right. I'm sure a lot of people didn't want to hear that. But, when The Atlantic publishes, and I read The Atlantic, I'm a subscriber of The Atlantic. McKay Coppins was on the show yesterday, writing for The Atlantic. I love The Atlantic. Quality journalism. Ron Brownstein writes for The Atlantic. Mark Leibovich writes for The Atlantic. David Frum writes for, I read all of their stuff. But when The Atlantic dedicates an entire January, February issue to here's all the horrible things that are going to happen if Trump's getting, you're preaching to one another, and MAGA takes note of this. And you know what else is another great example of what I'm talking about? Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Trying to say that Trump was an insurrectionist and ought to get knocked off the ballot. Lawrence Lessig, who's the Harvard professor who was my guest on CNN 2 weeks ago, he hates Trump, or at least the idea of a Trump presidency. Maybe it's not personal. I don't know. He thinks he's a disaster and would be disastrous for the country. But Lessig says the only thing worse would be in some close court decision that he gets knocked off the ballot, and that's how his campaign ends when there's all this support among Republicans for him. I think that's true. Go beat him at the ballot box. Go beat him at the ballot box. But don't align all these institutional forces in a way that MAGA thinks that it's now unfair. Because then you're helping them. You're helping them. That's my message. Rachel Maddow, this week, you helped Donald Trump. MSNBC, this week, you helped Donald Trump. Jamie Dimon gets it. So that's why the poll question today is what it is. That's why the poll question is what it is today. Are those who are most in opposition to Trump actually helping him? That's what I think. So, hey, by the way, how do you think what I just told you, polished up a little bit, will go over as an opening show commentary today? And by the way, TC knows best. that like all you have to do is tell me that's not gonna fly, and then I'm like, okay, we got to do it. We got to do it. So, all right. I thank you all. I appreciate you all. Got a lot of snow, didn't we? The roads are pretty decent. I've been out and about. So if you were all, inside yesterday and you're in the Northeast, today's a better day to be out and about. And by next Thursday, I think we're going to hit 50 degrees. Holy smokes. All right, gang. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Tune in. See how this goes. CNN 9 Eastern, and I'll see you soon. Bye.